disallow, give the information about what is going on there now, and to a degree, what is going on in Congress and concerning that region now as well, and get the information about that. Just last night, I believe it was, or I don't know how many hours ago it was, Israel once again bombed the Gaza Strip. And as I think you just noted, Gaza is basically, really all of the Palestinian territories are being controlled by Israel. Palestinians do not have control of their external borders. They cannot leave or enter their own land without permission from Israel. In the south, Gaza, it has been Egypt that has done Israel's bidding. So it's officially Egypt that decides whether or not someone can go in and out of Gaza, but Egypt has been taking its orders largely from Israel. So you have basically this prison called Gaza that contains 1.5 million people, men, women, and children. These are just families that live there, that are consistently being attacked by what is at least the fifth strongest military on the planet. Gaza has no military. They do have resistance movements. They have some armed resistance movements that have minimal weaponry. You know, probably their largest weapon, perhaps, are these homemade rockets that we consistently hear about, that they sometimes, that they try to fire out from their prisons. They're little homemade rockets. They don't have guidance systems. They don't have aircraft to drop bombs with. They don't have tanks. But, the armed resistance will try to fire these rockets. Now, the media consistently talk about these horrible rockets, thousands of rockets landing on poor little Israel. Well, these little rockets have killed a total of under 20 people. In the whole 8 or 9 years, I think it's about 8 years that they've been used, they've killed only 20 people. Now, I don't minimize what those deaths mean for those families, but Israel has killed thousands of people. And it committed the killings long before there were any rockets being launched. So let's look at the reality. You have thousands of people being killed in Gaza and in the West Bank. Over 45,000 that have been injured, many of them with permanent injuries, many of them children. Let's get the full picture. And now we have Israel bombing using the most advanced weaponry around at a population that largely has very little weaponry whatsoever. They've just injured 10 people. I think at least two of them, two of them were children, 3 of them were women, and they bombarded a medical storage facility east of Gaza City. Gaza has been, and again, humanitarian agencies of all sorts, including a number of, Christian Aid, for example. There's a humanitarian aid agency in Gaza, Amnesty International, Oxfam, a British humanitarian aid organization, have all been trying to tell the world that because of the siege on Gaza that Israel has imposed, the people of Gaza don't have sufficient medicine. Over 300 patients have died just since March because there was either not the medication they needed or they were not allowed out of Gaza to get the medical care that they needed. 300 patients have died. Children are having their growth stunted. There's malnutrition in Gaza because of the siege on Gaza. And now matters have been made even worse by Israel just bombing a medical facility in Gaza. This is not a unique event. This happens time and time again. And this just happened recently. And it was done with the tax money that we give to Israel. Over $8 million per day of our U.S. tax money goes to tiny, very wealthy Israel. And Israel then uses our tax money to do things that none of us would agree with. And our media don't tell us about it. That's the horrible situation that we are in, that I think all of us can oppose and should oppose. We need to join together and we need to stop this. And I think we can. It's something we need to do, and the first step is to get the information. The next step is to share it with other people. And then the third step is to tell our political representatives, we don't want this. It is time to end this massive aid to Israel. We have better uses for it here. It's time to stop it. And when enough of us do that, our elected representatives will change those policies. That's all it is.
Well, it's simple, but you've got the media that isn't working for you.
I think a big problem is the media, exactly. That we see that the media, and again, I like to emphasize, conservatives are very ready to agree, well, the liberal media is doing a bad job. And liberals are very ready to agree, oh yes, the conservative media is doing a bad job. Well, on this issue, across the liberal and the conservative media, both are doing a bad job. They are giving us, most often, Israeli spin. Mostly what they are doing is omitting critical information. That's sort of, if I came into your studio and I hit you, with a baseball bat or something, and then you pushed me back, shoved me, trying to defend yourself, and the media reported, man shoves woman. That would be true, and yet, without the context, it's basically a lie, because you need to give the full context for people to know what went on. So that's what the media consistently do with Palestinians. And by that kind of news reporting, if you can even call it news reporting, in which only a little piece of the picture is being given to people, that's how they are creating this hatred and fear of Muslims among people who I think would know better if they got the full picture. If they got the full picture, they would say, oh, Muslims are responding the same way I would respond if my children were being killed, if my women were being attacked, if my land were being stolen from me. This is the way I also would respond. Instead of thinking, oh, this is an alien response, these people are so different, horrible, violent terrorists. If people saw the whole picture, we would understand, we would draw very different conclusions from it. But the media are not giving us the whole picture. That's the problem. Fox News is not doing it, and CNN is not doing it. Neither are doing it.
Well, that's the reason I do this show, so I can have people like you. Have you been? They refer to me as a right-wing extremist, as a conspiracy theorist, as anti-government. Yet nobody on mainstream has ever questioned me about how I really feel. And they're doing the same thing to you, aren't they? They're blocking you from any mainstream shows. We can't have anybody having these views. You're not talking about killing Jews. You're not talking about destroying anybody. You're talking about us all being equal. And I have sold in New York City. And I've gone into one shop that was owned by Jews. I've gone into another shop that was owned by Muslims. I've gone into a third shop that was run by Christians. And they all live together in New York. Why can't they do that in Jerusalem? Why can't they do that in Tel Aviv? Why can't they do that in Israel? Why can't the Palestinians...
That's such a good point to bring up, because as you say, that is the truth here. And it was the truth there. And again, I imagine you know it, and I would suspect many of your listeners might know it, but the fact is, Christians, Muslims, and Jews lived together in Jerusalem and in Palestine for centuries without conflict. This is documented in the historic record. Again, we can all look into it and we find that fact. When I have gone to Jerusalem and to Palestine, I have talked to Palestinian families, older people that were living there before the war of 1947 to 49. And I would often ask, my job was to go there and ask questions and listen to answers and look for the facts. And the questions I would ask was, did you know any Jews? Were you friends with any of them? What were relations like? And I consistently heard people say, oh yes, I had Jewish neighbors. We were friends. We lent each other money. I had people tell me we would take care of each other's children. consistently I would hear that type of thing. So that's people right within their lifetimes talking about that. It's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, one of the holiest and oldest churches in the world, Christian church. As we know, sadly, many Christian denominations are sort of hostile to one another and have disputes. So there was lack of decision about who could hold the keys to this very holy Christian church, because different denominations all wanted to hold the keys. And in the way they resolved it is they gave it to a neutral third party that would hold the keys. And who was that neutral third party? That was a Muslim family. So traditionally, a Muslim family in Jerusalem holds the keys for this Christian church. Because that was the neutral party and everybody, they were friendly in that way, that was sort of the way that dispute was resolved. And that shows the friendliness among Christians and Muslims. There was also, that existed among all three of those states. What happened was this political movement of Zionism that began in the late 1800s, began to move people to Palestine with the purpose of dispossessing 95% of the people that lived on that land. At the beginning and for many years, and even among many people today, that was by observant Jews that was considered very heretical.
No.
Most of the Jewish population in Jerusalem opposed it. It was considered very heretical. And that's when the problem began and grew and eventually became violent.
This whole thing that you're talking about here, you're talking about Zionism. But Zionism was financed by the Rothschilds. And in my book, Mystery Babylon, in the history of the Rothschilds, one of them refers to Jerusalem as his colony. He'll do anything he pleases with that. And now Israel has basically become a safe house or a safe country for the criminal Zionist, which I consider a worldwide criminal syndicate. And but it's controlled and financed and reaping the benefits with all that $50 billion a year that we're feeding into Israel. That's all going into the pockets of the Rothschilds some way. So, and also the banksters, Jacob Schiff in particular, financed the whole Bolshevik revolution. There were two countries that wouldn't go along with the first attempt at one world government called the League of Nations, and that was Russia and the United States. With Russia, they murdered the Tsar, his family, killed his dogs, and over here they gave us the Federal Reserve.
Well, really, Clay, I don't try to make those connections. I'm not saying they don't exist. I don't know. I like to say in my case, and I'm sure you are, but I'm just stating where I am. I like to research everything for myself and then make statements within what I have determined. Certainly what I have found is that Rothschild did finance some of these early Zionist settlements. There's no doubt about that. And there still seem to be connections there. There are certainly the oligarchs in Russia that really plundered Russia to a horrible degree. People were losing their life savings in 2 weeks. There was great misery created by these oligarchs in Russia. And a number of them then took refuge in Israel. That's been written about in the Israeli media. It's very valuable to look into. There was an article recently by an Israeli author who was discussing some of that. So I think, again, I think each individual can and should research this for ourselves and learn the facts. There's so much to learn that there's only so much time. I think it's especially important to learn about what's going on, and that's what we provide in terms of the present and to a degree about the past on our website, If Americans Knew. It's just important for all of us to learn the facts and then to state them as precisely and accurately as we can. So what some of the things that you're saying on this program I'm assuming that's come from your research and that you have found documentation for that. I'm saying the things on this program that I know that I have researched and that I've found documentation for. And the listeners then will listen, both of us, and will then do their own independent research and look into and confirm whatever they confirm, and will, I hope, spread accurate information as widely as they can do. That's all that any of us can do, and I think we're required to, because we are citizens of the most powerful country in the world right now. The United States is extremely powerful. Therefore, as citizens of our country, we really are obligated to learn what our country is doing in the Middle East and elsewhere, to the extent that we have the time to do that, the resources to do that. And I think whenever we find that our nation is doing things that are cruel, that are unjust, that are hurting people abroad, and therefore are usually hurting us as well, we need to oppose those actions as American citizens. And I hope that your listeners will do that. I expect many of them already are doing it, and that's certainly what I'm trying to do. I think we're morally required to do that.
I really appreciate the work that you're doing. Alison Weir, her website is ifamericans.knew.org. It's all linked on my website. I've redone the website. And Alison, I'd like to, if you can stay up late one day next week, I'd like to have you on my 2-hour show that will be debuting Thursday evening, and it'll be from 10 o'clock East Coast. You're on California time, so it's not bad for you. 7 o'clock p.m. to 11. Or I'm sorry, 9.
Yeah, I as I say, I always like an opportunity to, share my information with as many people and as widely as I can. So I'll try to do that. But as you know, also we're all so busy, and there are a number of articles that I'm in the process of trying to write, and research that I'm in the process of trying to do. So I can't guarantee I can always accept invitations.
Tell you what,
thank you for extending it.
Shoot me over an email. Let me know what day next week, if you've got a day open to do that evening show, and I'll bring you up on that network. It's a new network with some of the old networks, but it'll expand the audience quite a bit. And
okay, well, truthfully, I doubt I can do a 2-hour show, but I'll see if I can at least be on part of it.
That'd be fine. You could do a half an hour, 30 minutes, whatever. We'll be taking calls. It'll be a little different format than this show. This show I devote strictly to my guests. I don't even have commercials on. The evening show will be different, and with 2 hours, we'll be able to take calls, and got an 800 number and everything to take calls. So we'll plan on that. Just let me know what day next week you would have available. And do you see us making it? Now, let me ask you this. I've told people there are a few things I can't tell you. I can't tell you if the government took over the mafia or if the mafia took over the government. I can't tell you whether the government runs the media or if the media runs the government. Who's behind this? What's going on in the Middle East? What's happening with Israel? We're supporting Israel to the tune of $50 billion. They've got 400 nuclear weapons that would seem to make them the most dangerous power out there, a little bit more dangerous than Korea. And they bragged that they could hit every capital in Europe with their nuclear weapons. Who's running things? Is the United States running Israel, or is Israel running the United States? Just in your opinion.
In my opinion, based on all the evidence, the tail is wagging the dog. The evidence is that Israel largely tells the United States what to do, not vice versa. There are, of course, exceptions. There are times when our governments may ask Israel to do something, and they may actually do it. They're rare, but that may have happened. And there are times that Israel may have told us to do things, and our government might not have done exactly what we were told to do. But overall, Israel is running this show. And, that sounds like an extreme statement, but when you really look at it, it's not so surprising. Because I think any special interest group, if they are very focused and on an issue, and if the rest of us are not paying attention, and if they manage to coordinate campaign donations on behalf of a certain issue, and the rest of us are not paying attention and not doing the same, then they'll drive the policy, because our elected representatives have to, the way the system is. Even if you're trying to be a principled person, a principled politician, if you're a congressperson, you have to run a campaign every 2 years. That takes a lot of money in the days of TV advertisements, etc. So you have to constantly be raising massive amounts of money in order to be reelected. And if some groups will say, well, we will raise money for you if you just take these stands we want you to take. And if you don't, not only will we not raise money for you, we will give money to your opponent. Then that will drive the policies that are enacted by Congress.
All right, let me bring on up. Let me bring a caller up. Doc, is that you?
Yes, my dear beloved Clay. Good morning.
Good morning. Allison mentioned something. She said when you talk to a Muslim, they always say, peace be with you. And that's what you always say to me. Are you happen to be Muslim?
Yes and no. I'm an ambassador for peace, so I promote peace in different formats and fashions. So that's what the main connotation for the universal to promote peace in all kind of forms and fashions. So.
Okay, Alan. This is Doc Awad. He's brought me into the system to help Americans own gold. But Doc, what's your opinion about the situation we're talking about with Israel controlling the United States, and the standard bankster formula is fund both sides of every conflict. I just brought you up to in these last few minutes. We got 4 minutes left. To get your input on this. We haven't talked about this. You and I haven't talked about the whole Jewish issue, Israel issue, and the whole world government. I've said that the war on terror, Allison, is a war against anybody anywhere in the world that doesn't want to go along with one world government, and that includes a lot of the Muslims. They don't believe in usury, and they do believe in Jesus Christ. So, Doc, just give me a quick opinion, please, sir.
Yeah, I mean, Jews don't believe in usury too, but they impose it on other people to deal with. So they don't deal within themselves with usury, but they will force it to other people to deal with, which is very hypocritical to impose it on other people, but they don't do it for themselves.
Allison, what about this? Hang on, Doc. What about this, Allison? What about this usury issue? This whole fractional banking system, I consider to be a total scam. But
I'm not an expert in religion, so I'm not really somebody who tries to analyze religion. I do think people should read the books that I recommended, and I'm sure those address that. But that's not really my expertise.
All right, dear. What is with all of your research? What conclusions do you come to? What do we do? I mean, now we are getting closer and closer to the whole police state that the Palestinians are experiencing. What is your recommendations? What do we do?
Well, I think, as I said, the first step is what you're doing, really, and what I'm trying to do is that we are trying to get the information out as widely as we can to as many people as we possibly can. That's the first step. Once enough Americans, the fortunate thing here is that we are a democratic republic. We vote for our government. Now, many of us sadly abdicate our responsibilities and don't vote. or don't inform ourselves sufficiently. What we need to do is inform ourselves, inform our neighbors, and we all need to vote. And then we will change our policies. It's that simple. We don't need an armed revolution. I think that violence is the saddest recourse that anybody can ever take, and it should be the absolute last one anybody would ever take. I think the way we can protect our principles, we can have a country that we are proud of and that we are safe within, is by informing our citizens and then telling our Congress people to enact different policies than the ones they are enacting now. It is that simple. Some congressional districts have succeeded in that. It can be done. But it takes more of us to do that, and we need to grow the number of us that are all doing that. We need to all do that. It really is, I agree with you, it's critical. This is a life and death issue for people in the Middle East and North Africa, and it is a critical issue here for the United States as well. To a degree, it is becoming a life and death issue for us also,
and
for our nation.
It is. We're approaching that right now.
It's essential that we address it. Things are going on in this country that are profoundly dangerous and disturbing. My father fought in World War II. I'm sure many people are in that position. He fought for freedom and for the system that we are going to lose if we don't stay vigilant and do something about it.
All right, and don't get fooled and sidetracked by the demonization, the name calling. The information we're bringing you is accurate. Allison and I both want the same thing, and that's a free world, a free America, and one based on liberty and justice. If Americans knew.org, Allison Weir. Darling, thank you for being with me. Let me know if you can do a part of my show next week. Just let me know what day you'd like. Thank you very much, Allison.
Thank you very much.
God bless.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Call recording has been completed.
All right, folks. FreeAmerican.com. Check out the website, make a donation, order some books. Help keep me going here. Help me stay in this fight. Help me keep bringing you people like Allison Weir, like V.K. Herman. And, that's right. Anthony Hilder will be on my show tomorrow night. And tomorrow, what have I got on tomorrow? I've got David Koss on tomorrow. Dr. D. Charge on the chat room will be my guest tomorrow morning and tomorrow evening. Boy, you got yourself set up with a lot of work. All right, God bless all of you. Hang on, boys. I'll get you out in a second.